when I see a substantive question that a lot of your course mates would benefit from in terms of expanding on a particular concept, I will make a lecture. I would provide my response in terms or in the form of a lecture, and share it with all of you. So the practice models, in fact, I need you to have this really quite clear and understood. Rothman and Tropman talks about three basic practice models. And by practice model, I want you to understand these as the lenses or the lens through which community practice is conceptualized and implemented. So the models provide us with the lens or a way of looking at what a community needs, as well as how that need would need to be achieved, or how that need will be achieved. So when we're talking about a model, we're talking about a framework. Some people would refer to it as um, um, a conceptual framework. When it comes to practice model, they are conceptual frameworks. Also, they are practice framework. So you have to look at community practice models as that. Um, so there are three basic ones that I am going to be discussing that I feel are very important for you to know. I have presented this earlier on in the semester, but I think I need to revisit them, uh, especially based on the questions that I was asked by one of you. So we have the locality development approach or model. The locality development approach focuses on self-help. Self-help. It looks at how a community can help itself, how an intervention or a program can be brought about in a community to equip the community itself to take actions towards solving that particular problem. From the global perspective, I have an example. The United States Department of State, US Department of State, has a program that they call the self-help program. They implement these programs in the developing countries. Some time ago in Africa, they implemented this program through the United States Consul General in Lagos, Nigeria. And what they did was they called for uh, local people in the rural areas to come up with ideas on self-help programs. And some of that included agricultural processing plants. For example, the tuber, people that planted cassava, people that plant cassava, how to process them. They would help them to purchase equipment for cassava processing. They would help them purchase equipment as well as take care of palm fruit harvesting and processing. Those kind of things. They are the locality development approach is uh, consonant with one adage that says it is better to show somebody how to fish than to give that person a fish. So the locality development approach is looking at how to provide you with those basic equipment or those basic materials that will help you to achieve self-help. Through the self-help approach, community members can move towards upward mobility. The goal is to empower, the goal is to equip, and the goal is to provide tangible facilities that would enhance self-help. So it is all about community capacity building, community integration, and process goals. So the locality development approach is very important. In fact, in areas where poverty is reigning supreme, the locality development approach has proven to work very well. Now, in the United States, an example of the locality development approach could be the individual development account that I talked to you about, that allows people to invest in businesses, invest in education, or to own a property, housing property, and so on and so forth. So you see how this one works. Now let's go to the next one, which is the social. Actually, I'm going to discuss the social planning approach before I discuss the social action. So the the social planning approach. Oh, something has gone wrong here. I have to go back, guys. Mhm. So the social planning approach looks at problem solving, and it's related to substantive community problems. It's unlike the locality development approach, its goals are not process oriented, the goals are task oriented. The social planning approach focuses more on the planning, intellectual productivity, brainstorming. So, during the course of this semester, you remember there was a time that I assigned all of you to be on the Blackboard system and to provide each other with feedback as well as group work on um, logic models development. So you developed your logic models. Some of you developed intervention. Some of you talked about evaluation and that. So the social planning model would focus more on planning these things out. How are they going to work? We have to plan. The product is a very sophisticated procedural output, such as the needs assessment is thorough, the logic model is thorough. So it focuses on problem solving with regards to substantive community problems. So it looks at what do we need to do now? Oh, we need to understand this problem. Then what do we know? What do we do? We need to complete a needs assessment. And that's when you see the practitioners that are focusing on this approach, they sit down, they review the literature, they look at the intended and unintended consequences of everything that they are doing, and they are doing it methodically. It's scientifically done. It is process. Um, it is task oriented. Task oriented. Now, one of the disadvantages of this process, of this model, is that it is highly technical. It involves a lot of uh, academic exercise. Then we come to the social action. Uh, the goal of social action, the way that I'm presenting this is the social action model looks at everything and say, okay, we are talking about self-help, we are talking about planning. Now it's time to implement social action. We have to take action. The goals is to shift power relationships and resources. So the social action model would ordinarily construe society or community as having a disequilibrium in terms of power and resource distribution. So the goal is to move, to shift power and to bring about power relationships that include those classes or those groups in a community that otherwise would be excluded. So power relationship and resources, it shifts it. It tends to say, okay, this community is being oppressed. this community needs help. No one is doing something about it, or it's not enough that is being done. Therefore, we need to take action. And that perspective that is focused on shifting of power relationships and resources, it looks basically at institutional change, and it could be task or process oriented. Now, Eklund, uh, one of the writers in this aspect, has noted that all social work-based community organizers are concerned with advancing the interests of disadvantaged groups, with improving social conditions, with the delivery of needed services, with redistribution of power and influence, with enhancement of the coping mechanisms of target populations, and with strengthening community participation and integration. So, when you look at the definition of community practice in the first place, you could see that there are 5 areas that Taylor and Roberts addressed. The first one is community development, community action, pluralism and participation, program development and coordination, planning and community liaison. So, all of these concepts, all of these are tied into these 3 basic models that I have described to you this time. So, um, again, when we look at a community, which, according to Tropman and Mary Will, is um, community identifies connections among people. It's all about people. So when we are taking action, when we are planning, or when we are talking about development, it's all about people. It's all about residents in a specific location. And it's about the relationships and activities of those people that are connected to a particular interest, concern, or problem. It is also a political unit. It also has a geographical boundary that can be easily identified. So you see how all these are tied together. They are tied together. Again, social planning, social planning looks at, it develops plans, it focuses on developing plans, forecasting the future, predicting the future. It focuses on researching, it looks at technological implications, it emphasizes skills, it uses formal structure and processes to build support for outcomes. It's logical, it's rational, eh, things are just done in a methodical way, according to Rothman and Zad in 1985. Now, you look at the locality development approach. Some people refer to this as the enabling approach. It's both a means to goals and a goal in itself. So think about that self-help example that I gave initially. Here, Rothman and Zayed, actually Lapin, 1985, described this as the dual emphasis on growth of individual and the group, neighborhood or community. So it focuses on growth. Growth. How do we empower? How do we give power to those people? How do we empower them to move in the upward trajectory? So practice rules encourage participation and social involvement for individual and group enhancement. It provides opportunity for self-help. It, it looks for ways to develop local leadership and organizing structures to enable urban and rural people to improve their social and economic conditions. So the major strategies with this locality development approach is that it builds cooperation and collaboration, and it also helps with conflict resolution. Um, really nice, but I want you to look at it as focusing on self-help. How do we develop not just the infrastructure in a community, but the people themselves? Because, like I said at the beginning of this course, there will be no community without people, and there will be no talk about community practice without focusing on the individuals themselves. Yes, institutions and the systems of organization are important, but the most important are people, both in terms of resources and in terms of development. Okay. So this is just a repetition of what I have already said. The locality development approach looks at self-help, community capacity building, and community integration. Now you come to social planning aspect is problem solving, task-oriented, intellectual concentration. I know some of you will be interested in this because it involves a lot of, intellectualizing and planning. It's logical and methodical. Then we talk about the social action, which is also about doing, practicing, actually trying to see differences, trying to make a difference, trying to change things based on what is observed and what you already know. Basic institutional change, it wants to change things, usually and always in the positive direction. Uh, you know that one of the basic economic assumptions, which is that human wants are insatiable. In the social work area, we look at human wants in terms of institutional. If there is an equilibrium between institutional status and human wants, then you know that we have no work to do. But that's not the case in the real life. There is always need for institutional change. There is always need to shift power relationships because most of our clients and almost all of our clients are, let me say, majority of the communities are in need of one form of change or advocacy of power shift or the other. So here are some of the facts that I've gathered about community practice models. They give us different ways to look at the community problems as well as ways to understand those problems. Community practice models help us to solve problems. They are solution focused. Some of them could help us to conceptualize a case, not necessarily implementing that change that we want, but you are the person who would know what you're looking for and then look at which one best suits that project that you want to implement. Also, the models guide the advancement of the interest of disadvantaged groups. Uh, they help us to understand power distributions and redistribution of resources in communities. And of course, those three models can be used together or interchangeably. Now, those are not the only models for community practice. There are lots of models that have been developed over time, and but I want you to concentrate on these. Now, there as advanced community practitioners, there are basic skills that you need to know. Some of you in the future would be called to testify either in a Congress or in a court of law or in a city council or in a conference. But you may be called to come and be an advocate, a community practitioner, and you want to be, in as much as you are well read and well prepared academically, you also need the skills to convey the information that you have in a very coherent manner so that it makes sense to people, not just to the scientific community, but to the community members themselves. One of the disadvantages of having this class online is that I'm not able to see you face to face and to relate to you how even your body language can influence a kind of testimony or meeting or negotiation or mediation that you are having as relates to a community situation. Now, that said, there are ways to present your model in a way that's simple and clear for people to understand. And within the academic community, there is an agreement on how to go about this. Now, when you are talking about causality, I'm talking about model building now, just basic model building. I am not going to make to go to the complex level. I will talk about just the basic model building. And please pay attention to this. You can stop this video at any time, replay it over and over to make sure you understand what I am talking about, because this is going to be a very good skill that you would have. You can use it in your research class, you can use it in your other classes as a way of presenting your materials based on facts, logic, and process. So in doing this, in building your model or in building your theory, there are two kinds of uh, arrows that we have that depict two things. The first one is causality. Causality. Causality has one arrow pointing towards one direction. When you see that in a model, it conveys causality. So the receiving end of the arrow is the dependent variable, the thing that is caused. So you can look at this on the right side. Poverty is causing crime, is basically what it means. The single arrow here means that crime is caused by poverty. So remember, the single arrow shows that the receiving end of the arrow is the dependent factor, the dependent variable, which means that poverty is causing crime. Now, there is another kind of arrow that has a bidirectional, that depicts a bidirectional relationship. So you can call that a correlational arrow, you can call it an associational arrow, or you can call it a bidirectional arrow. When you use that arrow, this bidirectional arrow, what you are saying is that there is a relationship between poverty and crime, as you can see in the right side of this diagram. So the first one is saying that poverty causes crime. The other one is saying that poverty and crime are related. And then we move to the other one. Having had this basic understanding of this direct relationship and bidirectional relationship in model building, let us move to the next level, which is the first one now. Poverty is a factor, and we are looking at poverty and joblessness. So, if I want to say that there is a relationship between poverty and joblessness, this is what I need to do. Add the double-headed arrow. Poverty and joblessness are related. Now I go to the next one, illiteracy. If I want to say that poverty is directly, in fact, that illiteracy is caused by poverty, what do I need to do? How I do that is by doing this. Yes, poverty is causing illiteracy, or illiteracy is caused by poverty. If I want to say also or convey that illiteracy is caused by joblessness, what do I have to do? I say that I put that arrow there. So illiteracy is caused by joblessness. Now, look at these three variables: poverty, joblessness, and illiteracy. So by looking at that, you could say that, oh, there is a relationship between poverty and joblessness. But at the same time, poverty causes illiteracy and joblessness also causes illiteracy. Then if I go further and add crime to that with this direct arrow, I am saying that in addition to the previous explanations that I have made, crime is also caused by what? Illiteracy. So looking at this now, it's becoming a little complex because I added what we call a mediator variable. Mediator variable. Uh-oh. I added a mediator variable. So the mediator variable here is illiteracy. Why is it a mediator? It is a mediator because it mediates the relationship. It stands in between crime, which is the overall dependent variable, and poverty and joblessness, which are the independent variables. So you see, but I'm not going to make it more complex for you because this is not a research class, but I want to show you how you can use those three models based on what you're looking at. For example, if you are looking at how um, how gentrification can lead to poverty and or which can lead to crime, you can basically, you know, consider gentrification as one of the factors, independent factors here, and then you use crime as the dependent factor, and you can add some bunch of mediating variables if you would. You don't necessarily have to add that. In fact, but you don't have to use the skills for your paper. But I'm just exposing you to this so that you have this knowledge, this skill. It's really cool, and it's very scientific. When you get to the level of doing structural equation modeling, you will see that this skill is also very useful, and that's kind of like the highest level of statistics that you can implement in a community practice area. But again, just look at this and practice it. Look at it as a way to present your model and to kind of like just have a simple way of conveying what your theory is and what your model depicts. Okay, so these skills are useful in community practice and advocacy, in facts and materials presentation. They are also good representation of graphical perspective to logic modeling. You can describe your community practice model graphically as presented above. Feel free to do this, guys. Feel free to do this. It's really cool. It's really good. It reduces the amount of stress you have to go through looking at all of the assumptions of a model, trying to get them together. Once you bring them together, the assumptions, and relate them to what you're studying, you can then quantify them into smaller factors of variables, and then highlight the relationships, and there you go. You just explain them. So I hope that this is helpful for you. Keep bringing me questions and I will continue to answer them because it's fun for me. I really like it when you ask questions. I really, really, really do. So keep them coming because they make me to be more excited about what I do and I enjoy it. All right, thank you, and I hope your papers are going well. Keep me updated. If you haven't up till now reached me about your paper, please do. That paper has a lot of points, and I don't want you to lose those points, please. I want this to be more of a relationship between me and you, um, looking at your work back and forth, making corrections so as to give you those skills that you need. Um, you know, more than just looking at it for points. Okay, and but the ones that I have reviewed are very encouraging. I'm impressed.